I'm currently replaying The Witcher 3 and I picked up a great quest which I had apparently erased from my memory because it really unsettled me. But today I am returning with more courage to tell you the tale of a tower full of mice. This quest starts when we visit Geralt's old acquaintance, Keira Metz. She requests our help in breaking a curse that inhabits a place called Fyke Isle.
The cursed isle on Lake Windammer. You've heard of it, I'm sure. The local peasants mumble incessantly about it, about the wraiths that haunt it. They claim none who go there return.
And this is because on one fateful day, an incident occurred. The Lord of Fyke Isle was a man called Viserad, and when news broke that the Nilfgaardian army had invaded, he took refuge in a tall tower on the island. For context, the events of The Witcher 3 take place just as the Nilfgaardian Empire have declared war on the Northern Kingdoms. The lands are war-torn, many children are left orphaned, and most of the population is starving. Now the local peasants were desperate for food, so they set sail for Fyke Isle in hopes that the Lord would be generous enough to give them some of his supplies. But very few survived this journey, because after they reached the island, they were massacred.
So the peasants who went to the island for food, this lord had them murdered?
The villagers say he had them poisoned.
A real gentleman.
But there were a few people who did actually escape Fyke Isle.
Yet even those who escaped the isle soon suffered agonizing deaths. Strangely, they did not seem to have been poisoned.
So it's up to Geralt to discover what happened that day and to lift the curse that remains on the island. But how can we find out what happened if nearly all of the witnesses are no longer alive? That's where Keira can help us. She gives us a magic lamp. By shining its light on the bones of the deceased, it will allow us to listen to their whispers. The first spirit encounter we come across is a group of men.
Quiet, fool. Babylon and the noble himself will hear you.
Nah, he sat his arse on silk pillows, like he'd be gobbling meat. We've no notion he's coming to tear him to shreds.
The peasants weren't just going to ask for Viserad nicely for the food, they were going there to kill him. Already we have a contradiction in the information that Keira gave us. A foreboding feeling sets in as we get our first hint as to what this curse is.
Millie, we gotta flee. Quick now. Millie! Millie, what's with ye?
I don't know. So hot. Burning. Ah!
What? No. No, stay back.
It makes your body feel hot, blood's boiling within, and now the time comes to enter this tower. The first thing we can see is that the floor is littered with mice and weapons, and here begins the spooky atmosphere. The spirits here confirm that they did indeed kill Lord Viserad.
Where's that noble? Lying here, quiet as a mouse. Head split open like a rotted pumpkin.
Too quick a death they gave him. Should have been made to suffer.
He's not the end of it. Sons can suffer for it, and a daughter. To the top!
And they are not stopping there. His family was also seeking refuge in the tower, and they are next. And then suddenly, opening it in typical fashion, there is no one on the other side, just a staircase leading down to a cellar. The door creaks and slams shut behind us. These spirits reveal to us that the mice we had seen upstairs were not a result of the tower being abandoned for some time. The mice were here originally.
Rich folk. Doubt I'll ever understand them. Keeping rats in cages like rabbits.
Let him out, maybe? Like to die of hunger if we leave him there.
I'd sooner burn the vermin. Releasing him's not like to bring no good.
They seem sluggish to you. Got the mange, maybe?
Rats kept imprisoned in cages with something wrong with them. Remember this detail for later. As we start the climb up the tower's first flight of stairs, we see spirits from earlier that fateful day before the peasants attacked. This is Lord Fyke and his daughter Anabelle.
Don't start, Anabelle. Back to your craft. Always bending my ear about fool peasants. I'll not hear of them again. That simpleton turned your head, but one Graham hardly makes the rest courtly, one and all.
My lord, peasants. They're through the door in the tower.
The tower is definitely haunted by something. Objects moving on their own, items of the wall falling to the ground, and this thing. I'll explain what this is later in this video. As we get to the top of the stairs, our lead ends short. Kira tells us that the top floor should contain a laboratory.
I'm at the top. Nothing here that looks like a laboratory.
Then you've not reached the highest level. Look for a passage.
The room is lined with human-sized capsules. Some sick experiments took place here. And this is where we finally meet someone who was there that day that we can communicate with. This mysterious spirit is Anabelle, daughter of Lord Fyke. Now we can finally have an account of what happened that day from someone who was actually there.
Peasants sailed to the island to ask for food. Is that true?
No! They came to rob and kill. They thought us rich, believed we'd stowed ourselves away here to laugh at their misery.
Lord Fyke's family wasn't much better off. They didn't have enough food to share with the peasants. The tower belonged to a mage called Alexander, who had offered to take in the family.
I heard my father cry out, but the mage told me not to reveal myself or let anyone in. In the village, they claimed he meddled in disease. Not curing it, but causing it. They said he lured rats into the tower, infected them with the Catriona.
The Catriona that she refers to here is the Catriona plague. Catriona is a disease which quickly spread through all the northern countries after the war with Nilfgaard. Those who suffer from Catriona die a terrible death. They convulse, they vomit blood, mucus, and have bloody diarrhea. After a fortnight or so, they die in agony. This explains the spirit we saw outside complaining of pain, and these symptoms also match the account that Kira gave us. Presumably, the peasants in the cellar talking about freeing those rats eventually did, and those rats spread the Catriona, and this is what caused the massacre. Many players, including myself, reported seeing a tall, thin figure appear, just for a split second. It's an asset that is used elsewhere in the game. It is a wooden statue found in Velen, most notably found at the entrance to Crookback Bog. When I was doing research on this statue, I found the artist's original concept art. Here we have our mysterious wooden woman with two others. This is the statue of Melitele. In the first Witcher game, you can see a statue which depicts her three forms, the first being a young woman, the second a mature, pregnant lady, and the third a wizened old crone. These three forms encompass what Melitele is the patroness of.
Melitele is mother of all living things, the goddess of love, fertility, and healing.
Returning to our mysterious wooden figure, I believe this is the young woman form, but there is something off about her compared to her previous, more flattering depictions. Her lips are thin and practically pulled back over her teeth, her ribs prominent and abrasions covering her body. Now, if you thought that was unsettling, let's take a look at these other two statues. At first, I believed this was Melitele's second form, that of a pregnant woman. Her bosom and stomach are round and shapely, indicative of one carrying a child. And then the unnerving mouth, a large gaping maw so deep it's hollowed out the back of the statue. And then the final form, possibly the crone, hunched, holding a cane. Her mouth is also agape, brow furrowed as if she were screaming. Now this is where I disproved my theory. This statue has a whole other quest attached to it, and the lady associated with this quest refers to it as a shrine to Verna the Merciful. In the Witcher universe, people pray to many gods. It's a polytheistic society, and Verna is one of these beings. So that rules out that this statue is the second form of Melitele. And this other statue has a similar story. You find it outside of a cellar where two peasants are making food offerings to the All-God. The All-God's demand for tribute in food form would explain why this statue is depicted with an enlarged body and the mouth wide open. So these statues as a trio aren't representative of Melitele's three forms. But this one alone could be. Her slender figure, long hair, and exposed body could all be features to symbolise that of Melitele's young and fertile form, whereas her gaunt face and wrinkled skin could be a reference to the old crone form. This would also explain why the statue is found at Crookback Bog. This is the dwelling place of the Ladies of the Wood. Their quest has connections to the themes of birth, bearing children, and of course, they are also referred to as being crones. So having this statue outside their dwelling place makes sense why they would worship her. So now that we have concluded that this statue has some connection to Melitele, what does this have to do with the Tower Full of Mice quest? Well, earlier when I mentioned the plague Catriona, this is not the first instance of the plague existing. It has spanned the entire Witcher universe. Specifically, in the first game, when there was an outbreak of Catriona, a temple quarter in Vizima was transformed into a hospital. And guess what this was a temple for? A temple of Melitele. How ironic that this temple was used to treat those suffering with Catriona. I think this was an intentional Easter egg as a callback to the first Witcher game, showing that Melitele's presence still watches over all of these people who died of Catriona. Alexander was a cruel sorcerer, but he did try and save Anabelle.
He gave me a potion. If I was discovered, I was to drink it. He said everything would be all right.
Poisoned? That how you died?
No, for I later awoke. I was alone, it was dark. Only there were rats everywhere. Dozens. Hundreds. And I couldn't move.
Sleeping potion. Effects hadn't worn off yet. You were paralyzed.
They were everywhere. All over me like insects. My face, my hands. I felt them rip open my skin, then crawl into my stomach. They tore me apart, and I could not even scream. Have I not suffered enough? Why can't I leave this place?
Anabelle not only suffered a traumatizing death, being eaten alive, but she was also betrayed by her lover. Graham was the one who led the peasants' attack.
He called to me. I opened the door for him, but others rushed in. They lunged at me and...
Did they hurt you?
They gripped my arms, tore at my dress. I managed to free myself and drink the potion, and then... nothing.
And your beloved, he dead too?
Graham? No, he lives. I would know if he died. But he fled and abandoned me. Left me here all alone.
Despite Anabelle's unjust end to life, she is not telling us the whole truth. We find a spirit of an individual who came to Fyke Isle after the massacre, but yet somehow still perished.
Anyone there? Who are you?
Interestingly, she gets very defensive when Geralt presses her.
The dead man. Looked like a monster had attacked him, recently. The tower home to anything else?
How am I to know? There's lots of wraiths here. I hear them whispering every night.
Not talking about ghosts. A monster who hunts here. You must have noticed something.
I don't know. I've noticed naught. Why do you ask? Why must you press me so?
Geralt has excellent survival and investigative skills. He is well versed in knowing how someone has died. Anabelle is hiding something. And then a slip-up.
Each night I walk to the island shore to gaze upon the village. Does he remember me still?
Said before you can't leave the tower.
Did I? You must have misheard.
I don't think so.
This is the point where your choice here will impact the quest's ending. There have been a couple of red flags with Anabelle. The fact that Geralt is able to talk to Annabelle's ghost, whereas the other spirits on Fyke Isle are in a fixed moment in time. Geralt was unable to speak to them, and the spirits could not see him. Yet Anabelle is inexplicably different in this manner. Secondly, when Anabelle misspoke earlier, why would she lie about being able to leave the tower? What difference would that make, unless it changed something integral about her existence? And lastly, the unexplained death of someone who perished well after the Fyke Isle incident, and when Geralt asks Anabelle about it, she gets heated and defensive.
As I see it, you're the curse's focus. The other ghosts on the island, their auras aren't nearly as strong as yours. It could be your blood ties to the land, the base of the curse, that is. If so, forgiving Graham, laying your resentment to rest should lift it.
I loved him. I'm prepared to forgive him. But I must know that he regrets what he did. Take my bones to him. He must bury them. This will be our farewell. Will you speak to him? Will you do this for me?
Will you choose to free Annabelle's tormented spirit without question? Hasn't she suffered enough?
Anabelle, listen.
You never wished to help me, and here I have someone would finally take pity on me. Stupid woman that I am.
If you reject her request, she cries out and transforms into her true form, a pester. A pester is a spirit of pestilence and disease, also known as a plague maiden. The name pester originates from Norwegian folklore, and it is the embodiment of the Black Death. In fact, the symptoms of this fictional Catriona plague are identical to that of the fatal bubonic plague which devastated 1/3 of the European population in the late Middle Ages. As Anabelle was eaten alive by rats infected with Catriona, it's tragically fitting that she transformed into a wraith, infection and suffering personified. Geralt is unable to kill her.
You cannot kill me. You know me.
She is doomed to be this way unless her curse is lifted. So now we must find the other party involved in this curse. Graham, the man who allegedly loved Anabelle, yet abandoned her in the tower to die. As we approach his home, we see another villager trying to get to Graham before us.
I told you I don't want to see no one.
You've got to!
Just leave me be.
Been locked in his hut since he came back from the Isle. Talks to no soul. Love's misery curdled his brains, I reckon.
It has been days, weeks since the incident on Fyke Isle. Why would Graham lock himself away all this time, unless he really was mourning the death of a lover?
Did you love her?
Aye. Something mad. Loved her so deep I believed we'd come through, believed we'd be together. Of course, it was not to her father's liking. His daughter and a plain lout.
It dawns on us that Graham did genuinely love Anabelle, so why did he leave her there?
They knew I was known at the tower, that the Lord's servants would open the gate for me as soon as I sold them fish.
They forced you to go with them?
No, I saw my chance in it, for Anabelle and me to flee. But it all spun in a chaos. Our boys from the village, they started killing everyone. Anabelle, they wanted to rape. First, then she drank the poison. Mage must have gave it her. I ran out the tower hollering that I wanted to die, cursing them all to hell. Don't force me to speak of it.
It becomes clear that what happened here was a big misunderstanding.
It can't be. She was cold all through like a corpse. I shook her, begged her, open your eyes. I never thought...
But now, how exactly can the curse be lifted?
If you know the legends, you know one kiss is enough to break an evil spell. On one condition. That it's a kiss from someone whose love is true.
I told you. I said I love her with all my heart. Take me to her, please.
It's dangerous. There are risks involved. Understand that, don't you?
Of course.
Although Geralt did warn Graham that Anabelle had become a pester, beholding her face to face begins the true test. Is Graham's love strong and pure enough to accept Anabelle?
I'd do anything for you. I would. You know that well. Believe me, I beg you.
Prove it. Kiss me.
As they kiss, Anabelle becomes corporeal. Her body is restored just like how it was when she was alive. This could be entirely symbolic. We may be seeing Anabelle how Graham sees her, through his eyes as he remembered her. Or this is indeed reality. The kiss between the lovers revitalized Annabelle's husk. But just as Geralt said, true love's kiss may lift the curse, but it can't bring back the dead. Graham has to die in order for him and Anabelle to be reunited. Anabelle can't be resurrected, but Graham can join her in death.
At last!
The Plague Maiden has had her curse lifted. She's now able to pass on to the afterlife with her lover, who accepted her until the very end. This is the good ending. Arguably, Graham didn't necessarily get a say in whether he wanted to continue living, but he did accept that this was going to be a dangerous mission, and did admit to saying that he didn't want to go on living without Anabelle. Interestingly, if you take a look at Graham's body, he's wearing an item of interest around his waist, what looks like a noose made out of rope. Graham is a fisherman, using ropes and knots as part of his trade. However, I believe the symbology is clear here. As soon as Graham set foot on Fyke Isle that day, he became a dead man walking. So what is the bad ending? This is where you agree to taking the bones of Anabelle to Graham. Anabelle still believes that Graham intentionally left her there to die, and as a result takes her misguided revenge on him.
And leave me be.
And now her bones have been taken off Fyke Isle. As a Plague Maiden, she is free to spread her vengeance. She couldn't do this before because of one reason. Earlier, when Geralt caught her lying about not being able to leave the tower, Anabelle said, "Each night I walk to the island's shore to gaze upon the village." And this is significant because she couldn't physically go there herself. Even though she is spectral in form, I don't think she was able to cross over the water that separated the island from the village. I couldn't find anything that mentions how spectres or wraiths can't touch water, but it did remind me of a particular legend, the Pied Piper of Hamelin. There was once a town called Hamelin which was inundated with rats. A musician, the piper, promised to solve this infestation by playing his flute. He skipped down the streets of Hamelin, playing away, and the rats followed him. And he kept playing until he reached a river, and the rats followed him all the way into the water, where they drowned. Annabelle's last moments as a human was where she was so overwhelmed with rats, consuming her, they became part of her body inside and out. And in the concept art for the Plague Maiden, she is depicted as having hordes of rats crawling out from under her. She was looking for someone to help get over the barrier of the water, and as rats are now part of her identity, I think that prevented her from being able to touch the water in fear of drowning.
Imagine the harm they'd do if they swam back to the village.
Swam? Rats? How do you figure they'd do that?
Anabelle has brought these rats infected with Catriona over the water, and now they are free to roam around the village, infecting everyone else. Let me know your thoughts on this quest. Were you as scared as I was when I played it? I think the combination of not knowing what to expect as you surmounted the tower was the most creepy thing to me. I really hate games when there is no light, you're in pitch black, and all you have is a small light source. I think the green colour of the torch also just made everything so much more creepy. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, whether you discovered this little Easter egg when you were playing, and as always, thank you so much for watching. And a special big thank you to all my channel members. Reeses5, Jawbite, Kyle Coldwell, Grim, Hellborn Hero, Retoyo Blom, Exile Turtle, Bloodfallen223, Jeremy, Moncaru, Kichu, Semfani, Joe Africano, Nubist, Chase, Just Nick, Kevin H, Taganon Dahl, Tabris, Jonathas Veras, Frankie Felix, Tarnished Ozzy, Milo Reglin, Cheatma, Daunted232, Jeremy Horatius, Dark Souls Weeb, Grislify, Echo Senvik, Joachim Westman, and Bucky. Thank you guys so much.